Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. We are live. Brendan and Brandon are coming back at you once again. We've had another week down in the preseason, another Seattle Seahawks game. We got another game coming up on deck, and we got more stuff to talk about. Things are constantly moving, things are constantly happening in this Seattle Seahawks world that we live in. So, I am Brendan. That is Brandon. How are you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing great, man. It's been such a nice training camp and preseason period. And then this is just, we're right there, sort of almost not day before Christmas, but you're a week out from Christmas and a little bit how it feels. So we're almost there to what seems like it's going to be a real fun season, Brendan. And that's just got me so hyped.
Right. It's been like 6 days since the last preseason game, so we don't need to spend much time thinking about that one, but that was a nice game. That was, other than special teams, about as good as you could ask for. And if you came into that game with a certain level of expectations, that game has to make your expectations go up at least a little bit. Maybe not a lot, but a little bit. It's going to bump you up a little bit.
Yeah, Brandon, there's people that want to talk a bit about how preseason means nothing, that the results of it are nothing, that anything can happen preseason and switch on a dime come regular season. And yes, those situations do happen at times. But I think by and large, when you're building yourself up to hopefully to be a good team, the things that we're seeing as far as hallmarks and signposts here with this team throughout training camp are indicators of this thing moving in the right direction. You can't guarantee any team's going to be great. You got to have a little luck involved, the injury part of it. But this thing and that win last week absolutely did that. You're right on point with it. And I think it doesn't tell how impressive a win it is, not by how the fan base is talking about it. Look at how nervous it's making those folks out there in San Francisco. Listen to the national pundits now watch that game and come away from it going, wait, maybe we weren't looking at this accurately in our outlook of Seattle this season.
Yeah, we're starting to get a little bit of attention here, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's good attention, I think. I've seen more positive attention with this Seahawks team over the last week than I did before. So we're doing something right. We're definitely on the right track here.
It's that impressive of a win, man. You control both lines of scrimmage. You, for the most part, kind of dominated with both sides of the ball throughout the game. Like you said, the special teams notwithstanding. That's going to open up some eyes when it's that good, especially coming on 2 weeks back to back off the Raiders' performance, which was very similar.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm in a good place right now, and if you're a Seahawks fan, you should be in a good place right now as well. I think that doesn't mean you will be in a good place the whole season, but right now, life is good.
Yeah, feeling good. Vibes are right.
So a few things to talk about over the last week. That some of it stems from, of course, that preseason game, but some of it is more generalized. I think the most interesting thing going on with this team right now in terms of something that is consistently developing and something that we're hopefully going to get some clarity on this week is the center position, because by all accounts, as near as I could tell, Oluwatimi had it. It was over. Like, they didn't declare it yet, but there was an understanding that Oluwatimi was clearly our best center and that he was going to be the starter in 2025. And then Oluwatimi got hurt at the exact wrong time, like terrible timing. And then Jalen Sundell goes out there in that first preseason game, and he plays okay. Maybe you're not crazy excited about it, but Oluwatimi still can't get back onto the field, still can't get back out onto the field. And Jalen Sundell goes out for that Chiefs game, and he looks great. He looks awesome. So we still don't know what's going on at center, but how do you see this playing out right now?
Yeah, I think the rating or grade that he had as well, being Sundell, not that I want to take the grades away and say that this is a representation of just the end all be all when it comes to this positional battle, Brendan, but he was at a 92 grade, which is dominance from the position. Any position you play, if you're in the 90s, that is an exceptional grade as far as PFF is concerned. I don't think Oluwatimi in his entire career, be it preseason or regular season, has come close to that kind of grade that he's bared out. He's like maybe a 70-ish guy at the highest that he's going to get you. So like you said, it's the injury hit him at the wrong time, at the worst possible time. But then also with this, Sundell has gone out and taken the job seemingly, and run with it. And the thing that comes down to this is that when you look at Kubiak's system, he wants a mobile center. He wants an athletic guy that can move in space and hit a lot of different blocks that are not easy for all offensive linemen to hit in this league. And Sundell has that in his bag. He can do all of that stuff as we saw this past week. And Oluwatimi, he can kind of do it. And so if it's right there where this is a close battle, Brendan, neck and neck, by a nose at the finish line, I think Sundell is probably going to get it by a nose at this point because the athleticism wins out. How do you see it?
I think that's where we're headed. I think that's the only conclusion that one can draw. I mean, Oluwatimi's not out there. And I know that in sports, there is resistance to having a player lose their job because of injury. I understand that there are definitely coaches out there that would be like, that's not the right way to treat a player. You don't let a player lose his job because he got hurt. But this is kind of a circumstance where Olu maybe didn't have the job in the first place. So I think that's where this is headed. I think that's where this is going. And I'm not the biggest Oluwatimi fan. I think there's a pretty low ceiling there because of the athleticism stuff that you just mentioned. And I think that while Sundell may have a lower floor, there is a higher ceiling there because of that athletic ability. So I'm down with it.
I also think too, it's just a little bit of how the nature of the offense you're going to be running that we've seen in preseason, Brendan, being that if you have to break it down between the two of these guys as well, in addition to this, one is a better pass protector, one is a better run blocker. So if you're going to run the ball more, and that's going to be where the onus is, then logically speaking, if this is close again down to the wire, you would think that would lean tell Sundell because he's going to be a better run blocker because he can get out into space in ways that Oluwatimi just can't.
Right, and there's also the North Dakota State factor with him and Gray Zabel. Those guys played on the same line for a while.
Well, and there's a couple of snaps in there, Brendan, where you've got a handoff block where Sundell comes up, and he's handing him off to Zabel. And it's a combo thing and it's a timing thing. And it's a, wow, that looks so smooth. It seems like those guys have done that before thing. And to your point on the chemistry aspect of it. And so that's another part of this to probably take into account.
Right. And even last year where Sundell barely played, and when he did play, I'm not saying he played good, but I'm thinking of that Charbonnet touchdown run against the Packers. If you remember that, like he's like 30 yards downfield throwing a block. That's not something that Oluwatimi's ever really going to be able to do.
And why didn't he maybe look better in that Packers game or the times he did start last year? Because you were in more of that pass happy kind of mode. And so you're putting him to where he looks not at his best versus when you are running the ball where he'll look a lot better. He's not a catastrophe in pass protection. It's just not the strength of his game, I would say.
Right. And as a center, pass protection is kind of an interesting one because usually you're helping. Usually you're not going to go one-on-one with some demon pass rusher most of the time. That's pretty rare. Yeah. Not that it never happens, but it doesn't happen that much. So I think that, I think the mobility is going to win out here. And look, Oluwatimi is going to make the team. I'm sure he's going to be there. So if Sundell gets out there and he can't hack it, you can always change your mind later. But I think that's where this is headed.
I do too. It's just kind of where it sort of is drifted. And that's the thing with these battles is that they don't always sort themselves out real fast and quick. Sometimes you got to get through some of the weeks of camp. You'd like it to not be this way, but this is just how it sometimes goes.
Right. And I think right guard, I don't think there's anything to talk about there. I think that Bradford's got it. It can't really be anybody else. He kind of got it by default, but he did play good in that second preseason game. So I'm not going to say it was completely by default, but who else would it be at this point?
Yeah, I think like your point on this is well suited in that it's not one necessarily he's gone out there and he's just taken the job over. It's a little bit of you don't feel great about what's behind him. Haynes hasn't. I will say Haynes got kind of poorly graded last week. When I rewatched the tape, I thought Haynes played a lot better than his PFF score indicated. So there is some encouraging signs with Haynes, but at the end of the day, he's taken the job. We talk about upside at the center position. Who's got the high upside? Bradford's got the upside, and he was right there with Sundell in this game at the 92 graded level. The tape backed it up. He has been a guy, unlike Oluwatimi, who in the past, Brendan, including regular season games, has put up occasionally these high water mark kind of performances, showing you a little bit of the flashes that do exist inside him of what could be if he can just tap into the consistency angle of it. So the ability is there. It really is. And every player, I don't know how many players we've heard in interviews this year, Brendan, who have talked over and over again about the fact that he's got all that he needs. He's got the goods. It's just about whether he wants it or not. And you never know when the light bulb is going to turn on that way and they suddenly go, oh, I'm a professional football player with a finite amount of time. I got a chance to go earn a big time contract this year. Let's lock this thing in. And maybe that's starting to happen with him.
Yeah, it's the consistency thing. And the coaching staff has been very complimentary of Bradford when they've been prompted to talk about him so far this offseason. And I found that interesting because it's not like they're like that with every single player. But McDonald and Kubiak and I think Janoko have both singled him out as like a guy who's really coming along.
Can you think of a player in recent history and I don't think it's a bad thing, by the way. I think it's just, this is what I like about this coaching staff, and that they actually do give you tidbits when they're talking to the media, and it's not just a bunch of nothing burger speak, where they're saying you everything, but they're telling you nothing. In that that I can't remember if coaches telling you before with players, well, he's got everything he's got everything in the bag he needs. Does he want it? Is he going to stay connected in the process day by day in that way? Can he be in that mode? And I think that it's both a little bit. You get a little bit like, ooh, does he want it? He's a professional football player. You shouldn't need to be motivated in this way. But it does just tell you that it's right there for the taking for him if he can have that click into place. It isn't some, I've got a part of my technique that just holds me back. I just don't have the fast enough feet. I don't have the long enough arms. I don't have enough power. He's got everything you need there. And he's got a couple of years of seasoning in the system now where he's not just some young pup on the scene, first kind of trying to learn the ropes on 13 starts out of LSU. So there's a lot more encouragement here, even though you were right on this. He didn't quite fully just earn the job outright. You would have liked to have stacked a lot more behind him. That was the whole point of us wanting to see more this offseason, with the offensive line being dealt with a little bit more stronger, but maybe he will be enough.
Right. I'm excited. His RAS score is historic. Sometimes people, I think, forget that. This guy is a historically good athlete for his size. 330-pound guys are not supposed to be as quick as he is. I know he's not as quick as other players out there, but pound for pound, he is historic.
Yeah, and that's what can kind of guide him to the promised land into becoming a good player in this league. It can, as long as the light turns on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the biggest news we had this week during the gap between games was probably what we got with Uchenna Nwosu passing his physical. I think it happened on Monday. And for whatever it's worth, he hasn't been taken off the PUP yet. But I was mentally in a place where I didn't think Nwosu was going to actually be able to do anything for several more weeks. So I was very surprised to hear that he passed his physical with 3 weeks to go before the first game. And it's definitely, it's ahead of schedule for me. So how do you think this is going to play out with him? Do you think he's ready week 1, or what are we dealing with?
No, I think what they're going to do is play a little bit of the game week 1, week 2 on this to give him the extra couple of weeks. And then what this also allows you to do is to get a little bit funky with your roster assembly. Because there's that whole game you're playing as you're leading into the first game of the year, Brendan, where you're trying to stash. We'll keep this guy in the roster through week 1, and then we'll be able to put him onto the practice squad week 2 or 3, because teams aren't going to be as much, scanning the skies for these kind of players like they will on that cut down day if you allow them to get out there free at that point. So you try to get past kind of the mess of all of the traffic on cut down day. And this is an easy way to do it, where you just essentially have him out there for a couple of weeks. Just get a little more rest, and then you come back around, and then maybe it is you're trying to bury a Mike Morris back up onto the practice squad at that point, where that might not happen if you try to cut him after this game on Sunday.
Okay, so what are you doing to mitigate the loss of Nwosu until he gets back in that, presumably sometime in September? Are you going to ride with Jared Ivey, or are you going outside the current roster to figure something out?
I think that they're going to keep both Mike Morris and Jamie Sharif will be one of my surprises that I think makes the roster. And in Sharif, then you have a guy that can also play off the edge, Morris that can play off the edge. And then you have 3 guys coming out the gate here that can play it in the rotation for a short-term basis, where maybe they're running a little bit more snaps in week 1 or 2 than they'll be running in week 7 or 8, let's say. But that doesn't, to me, that's not going to be a big bearance on those players that got to run those extra snaps. If you're doing it through half the season, it's maybe more concerning, but there's 3 of them. You can rotate them through the game. You'll bring in Mike, you'll bring in Sharif here and there for some little touch snaps as it goes along. I think you can kind of mitigate it initially, but also we were both on board with, just go get a Clowney and let's just make sure we're reinforced at this position. And, you grab that and you're done. You don't have to do anything else basically for the rest of the year at the position, and you can concentrate on other stuff. So I'm still in favor of that, but Clowney still remains unsigned. Who knows what's going on? Maybe he's going to wait till the year on that.
Yeah, actually, I do have a little bit of an update there. I think it was Aaron Wilson, who does a lot of this kind of NFL reporting stuff, who said that Clowney has finally started to make the rounds and try to figure out where he's going to go. He was just waiting for training camp to be close to over, and now he's ready to get off the couch. And hopefully he wasn't sitting on that couch too long, but point is he knew what he was doing. He just doesn't want to have to go through the weeks of training camp in 90-degree weather.
I don't blame him on that. If I'm a guy that's been in the league this long and I know my body and I know how to train myself, and then I'm go sign a contract at a place for multiple years and then they cut me away, and then I'm out there in the market, I'd be in the same place. Like, well, if I'm going to have to be this gun for hire, bounce around guy, then I'm going to make this kind of work for me too. And so, isn't like there's going to be a team out there that's willing to bring him aboard.
Right. One thing that I'm thinking about from last year, I remember it didn't happen a lot, but the Seahawks had a couple moments where they would put Big Cat at edge, and even Byron Murphy played a couple snaps at edge. I think that speaks to the creativity that McDonald likes to bring to his defense, the ability to get a really big guy out there occasionally and not just have it be something that you're doing because of an emergency, but something that you find a way to make work in a positive way. That could also be part of the solution to fill the Nwosu gap for a couple weeks. Wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, that's good.
Emmanwori too. I mean, Emmanwori was practicing with the edges earlier in camp so he could work on his blitzing, and he's about as big as some of those edge guys. So it's not absurd to think that you kind of piecemeal this.
He's explosive coming off that edge as well. So I do think you can kind of, bubble gum and toothpicks and, popsicle sticks this thing together for a couple of weeks if you have to while you're waiting on Uchenna. And that, the important part is you have the 4 for the majority of the season on that rotational basis. But I think you got some guys you can kind of, what we're touching on here, that you can kind of pepper in there initially. I just don't think, though, with the timing of this, it just feels like a couple weaker with Uchenna on this side of it, and you just kind of roll with him. But it's a good point on the edge. They have said with Byron Murphy, he said the plan is not, they're going to keep him between the B gaps, Mike McDonald has said. So the plan is not to do that with him, but that's also makes some sense too, because in Murphy, you don't necessarily have a quote unquote big edge in the way that Mike McDonald wants to look for it out there when he lines those guys, which is, it's not just about your weight. It's also the size and the length you're bringing into play. A little bit of why I think you did have Leonard Williams, to your point last year, for instance. We're really happy with Travis Gibson. We're really happy with Roy Robertson Harris. Both those guys were brought in to be your big edges here. And so that was what drew that, I think, a little bit.
Right. So that's about it with Nwosu. It is worth noting again, he is not off the PUP yet, even though he passed his physical. So there's probably a few steps he has to get through before he can actually play NFL football. And it could be a month before he gets through all of it.
Very much could be. I could see it being the first 4 games of the season up to that for sure. I think if it was more than 4 games, they would have made another move for another edge up at this point.
The final bit of news from this week that I want to go through real quick would be on my end, the Dalton Risner visit that is apparently going to take place. I think they said it was tomorrow. Well, no, it can't be after this Packers game. So it would be probably Monday or something like that. Any thoughts on that?
How many times have we joked about Dalton Risner and the inevitability of him being on this team as just a guy you end up grabbing? Not because it's something about his skill set. He's just like the epitome of just that lineman guy that just good, bad. He's played a while. What is he, left guard, right? I just kind of one of those guys you're just aware of. Look, I don't think Sato Lambeau has come really far when it comes to his pass protection. I think Bryce Cable-Dew has been a rough go, for not rough go, but I think they've gotten some good and some bad with him. They haven't felt really great about that. In Risner, you've got a steadying presence that you know exactly what you're going to get. With those other guys, I think that there's a pretty big question. And Lambeau in particular, I think you get really worried about him in that pass pro stuff, because there's, even in preseason, there's been some really rough reps with him. He can run block like hell, but in pass protection, he whiffs at times more than Bradford, which is saying something. So I think that this is probably a little bit of, like we talked about, Bradford winning the job, not really being pushed. The backups kind of just, they're being all right. You'd like to probably have a little bit more of firmer ground from a Seahawks perspective than just you're feeling all right with the backups if you have to call upon them. And there's definitely a fear with bringing them out there. I'm sure that these guys are going to kind of quasi suck if we have to bring them out there and start them a bunch.
Yeah, I also think that it's a pretty big indictment of Christian Haynes, because this might be something that we're looking at doing just as like a backup on the left side, because Risner's played 95% of his snaps in the NFL so far at left. And there's no way we're going to bench Gray Zabel for Dalton Risner. That's certainly not the consideration here. So maybe you're just bringing him in as a pure backup on the left side because you don't think that Christian Haynes can even be an adequate backup, which at that point, he's probably not even making the roster. And he is one of the guys, and we've talked about this before, that I haven't really heard anything positive about this offseason. Everything's been either neutral or kind of negative.
He's not done a lot, that's for sure. And I did think, like I said in the last game, watching the all 22, I especially looking at his grade, I was like, let me double check this off the grade and rewatch a little bit of his snaps because I thought they looked better. And I did think he looked better in this game. But to your point, that's not been the way that this has rolled with Christian throughout training camp or the offseason. And you come back to it where the guy was supposed to be kind of ready-made, and he walks in, and what he's going to be is what he's going to be, and maybe he's got a limited ceiling, but he should be able to hit that floor real fast. Instead, he doesn't seem to have a floor. And so if you don't have that floor, and then we already know in drafting you don't necessarily have that real big ceiling to you either. Well, you may be a man kind of without a land a little bit on that one when it's all said and done there. So I think that definitely could be the case. I certainly do believe as well, though, that they don't have any confidence in him playing left guard. I know they've tried to have him do that, but he's a right guard, pure and simple. You're not going to get him out there. It's going to be a nightmare if you're having him work off 3 techs. He just doesn't have the lateral foot speed to stay in front of those guys.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's a nightmare on the right side too, because he doesn't have the strength. That might even be as big a problem as the lack of mobility. So that's why I've said, teach this guy how to snap, see if he can hack it at center. I think that's the only way you make this work, really.
Well, unfortunately, he can't snap. So that's the problem with that one, is that the snaps are freaking all over the place. I watched it in person at training camp, and that's where we just, a man without a land is kind of where you'll maybe end up landing here on this one, where it's just not quite the strength to right guard, not the athleticism to center or to left guard. And then just you're too long in the process for you at this point to try to start to learn to snap as a center, as a professional, a couple of years into your pro career.
Mm-hmm. So I understand that it's probably a depth signing, but do you have any strong opinions on signing Risner? Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you have anything really strongly here?
I think that if the coaching staff has the outlook you and I are talking about, thinking this may be the way they're looking at the situation, which is the real worrying concern at this point, going to the second guys, and knowing you don't really have a pure left guard on the roster as it stands right now. I mean, Lambeau is a right guard, Bradford right guard, Haynes a right guard. So you do need to have a need for depth here. Yeah, I think I would like to. The thing with this comes back to is we would have liked to have seen the offensive line hammered much better and get much more certainty in-house, much less of the, well, if this thing works out with that guy and that thing works out and he gets in the weight room and he lifts the weights enough and, then maybe we'll have ourselves a player. Just give me something that's solid and steady and is not going to be a sieve, and I'll be happy. And Risner at least can be functional for you at the position. He's not going to light the world on fire, but he can be functional.
Yeah, I remember that in Denver, he was a guy that Broncos fans really liked after his rookie year, and it felt like he got a little bit worse every year. And by the end of his rookie deal, they just wanted to run him out of town. But I never got the sense he was like terrible. I thought that maybe there were times where he was a little below average, but even at his worst, I don't think he was awful.
We're trying to avoid dropping out the guys that are going to be 40 graded guys by PFF after the game. And again, this isn't to give PFF the all end all be all measure. It's just a way to kind of really break it all down to kind of bottom line on this, which is that you walk out of games last year with a Lamea, with a Bradford out there, with a variety of different guys out there, with Laken Tomlinson at times out there. He had some good games, but some games where it was like this, where you're at 40, which means that there's too much penetration. There's too much of this guy not getting his job done over the course of the game for you to be functional as an offense. You take that grade of a 40 and you get up to your point, 55, 60, and it's now in a place, look, it's not going to be pretty all the time. There will be some blown snaps, but overall it will be pretty consistent in what the quarterback can expect in front of them as far as what they're going to get, and the running back can expect in front of them as far as what he's going to get. And that's where I can see the value in doing this, because I just think that that's part of what's had our line sink us so hard lately. It's like they say, Brendan, it's not about who's the strongest part of your offensive line. It's about how weak is the weakest link.
Right. So I'm for it. I think it would probably be somewhere around 3 million, maybe a little bit less. He got 2.5 from the Vikings last year. Yeah. I think he got 3 from the Vikings the year before that. So somewhere around there should be fine.
I would say about the same. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's the main stuff I've got from this week in Seahawks news. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
No, we got the scrimmage game today, which was cool, and some tidbits coming out of that. But I think it's been pretty quiet as far as any other kind of news for our Hawks. It's been a pretty quiet training camp overall, in general. So we'll see what happens with maybe getting an extension or two before the start of the season, if that does happen. But no, everything's just been kind of rolling along.
Yeah, there was one thing that caught my eye from the post-scrimmage interview with McDonald. He said that Tyrese Knight got some good news today. He didn't elaborate. They've been very vague about whatever it is that's going on with Knight, but he did indicate that we are good to go for week 1 on the Tyrese Knight front. So if you wanted a little bit of good news from today, then that's probably it. That's a big one.
That's great news. We need these two inside linebackers to be running the fullness of this season and not be having to dial on the depth. I think we'll be okay on depth because there's a couple of these guys I think are in. O'Connell's interesting and Sharif's interesting, especially as him being a blitzer up at the line of scrimmage and what he can bring in that element of his game. But this is fundamentally very important that these guys are rolling out there because they're so good together. They've got such great chemistry, him and Ernest Jones. And he gave us the best season for a will linebacker in 25 years as a Seattle Seahawks organization. Beyond KJ Wright, beyond a couple of other guys that have trotted out there as rookies, he lit it up. And so we really need to keep this guy back out on the field and get going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are about as healthy as any NFL team could hope to be going into a season. Like you look at these other teams around the league, there's not a lot of. If anything, it feels like there have been more injuries than typical in training camp so far this year. Maybe not. Maybe it's just recency bias, but it sure feels like these teams are getting beat up.
Well, to your point, I mean, a lot of it too is the in-house division that we're looking at, right? The Cardinals have had their cornerback room decimated. The Stafford's just getting out there for the Rams right now. They've got a Lyric Jackson who's had blood clot issues and he hasn't been practicing. And then you look over at the Niners, they're losing a wide receiver every day. Literally, like every day, there's another Niner wide receiver going down, and they're bringing Robbie Chosen in and trading for Sky Moore, and they grabbed some guy today that I don't think I've ever even heard of. So they're definitely scrambling right now for that week 1 matchup where the Niners are not going to be walking in anywhere near at 100% health. They're already down Malik Mustafa. Pooney's probably going to be out for that game. It looks like. By the way, this is tracking.
No Ayuk. We already know that.
No Ayuk. DeMarcus Robinson just got suspended yesterday for the first 3 games of the year, and that was one of the big guys they're going to lean on with no Ayuk. And by the way, Juwan Jennings isn't practicing because he's holding in with a quasi calf injury.
Mm. Yeah, you think how long before the Niners? Any shot they got D. Eskridge on that roster by the time we play them? That's
at this rate, yeah. At this rate, it's just going to be they're going to lose so many bodies they have to.
That's the next rock to turn over.
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to go for full circle here. I mean, they just traded for Sky Moore, and Sky Moore is basically D. Eskridge with 2 Super Bowl rings.
He's D. Eskridge with worse hands.
Somehow. Yeah, I can't. I mean, I know it wasn't a real trade. I know it was like a fake trade, the pick swap, but I still can't believe Sky Moore actually had value in a trade. That was wild.
Yeah, I'm a little thrown off by that too, that he was able to kind of get that. Somebody was also saying like Vele got the 4th and the 7th. The Broncos sent to the Saints. So, and you're going, and again, the Saints, you freaking idiots. Just stop. Just stop what you're, just stop it. Just stop it.
That could be a 100 pick.
Huh? I know. Well, that's what I'm saying for
100.
And look, we liked Vele, but I mean, my God, really? Like, come on. There's been some, it also, as a lot of people posted online, it does make you kind of wonder about what you get from Marquez. It's like,
yeah. I actually have a video talking about that going live on the channel in a few hours. But yeah, Vele was a 7th round pick who put up almost 500 yards in a Sean Payton offense. That's really not that. Like there's a long list of receivers that never did anything until they found Sean Payton's offense, and then they put up a 500-yard season, and it didn't mean anything.
Yeah. No, he always is known for that. You're right about that. It's you're sort of Devery Henderson types back in the day, where it's just like he gets ultra production out of guys that or really good production out of guys that other teams wouldn't necessarily be able to pull in that same manner. But I'll tell you, if you can get an MVS 4th round pick, man, I'm throwing that all day long, every day, twice on Sunday. Let's go.
Yeah. At this rate, I might even do a 6th round pick because it seems like we have no plan for him. We're just he's gonna catch 8 passes this year. I'd rather have the 6th round pick.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And you and I have talked about a bit with it. It's the special teams quotient is the big part of it for me, especially because right now we have a big concern. I wouldn't normally be this way, but it is right now considering last year and where we've been at in the preseason so far, which is that our punt return game, our kick return game, and defending both of those 2 things is very much a concern right now walking in. And can you afford to have a receiver on the roster who just doesn't play special teams or doesn't play particularly well? Like he's going to go down like Tyron Bowden did at the end of the game on that punt return and two-hand touch a guy when he just got to push him out of bounds. Can you afford to take that risk? And I don't know that you really can, especially if there's an offer on the table for the guy to get you some draft capital back in return.
Right. I think Minnesota's the team to watch because they don't have Addison the first 3 games. And they're even with Addison, they don't seem to love what they have behind their top 2 guys.
Yeah, they're kind of feel a little was it like Naylor or something as one of their backups. It's pretty light and thin. They've trotted through some guys that are just kind of just some as good as Addison and Jefferson are. And they've got Hawkinson there, so they've got that 3-headed attack in the way they can run it. But I can understand them wanting a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I think that's really about it. So let's take a look at some of these donations. Thank you to everybody who is sending in the donations today. We have Robbie Red with $1.99. Running back 1 battle. Best ability is availability. Go Hawks. Yeah, Brady Henderson had an article that he posted, I think it was 2 days ago now, where he was talking about how Charbonnet is coming for that starting running back job and who's going to be the starting running back for the Seahawks. So that's been a topic of conversation recently, but I just keep coming back to it doesn't matter who starts. It's 1 snap out of 65 to 70 snaps in a game. What matters is that these running backs are on the field for plays that they are best suited to run.
To your point on this, I think you get at the end of the season, if both these guys are available, they're going to both end up around 200 touches by the end of the year. That's pretty much where you'll see them both kind of land at about the same. So it's really a 50-50 split situation. I would argue that when you take running backs in the second round in back-to-back years, that's kind of just the intention anyway, unless the guy you took in the first, second round pick has just completely blown his legs out and he's got nothing there. And so you're like, we have to do this year after. But if they're both healthy and you draft them with this intention in mind, I think it's you saying, look, the modern NFL is not one where it's about the bell cow anymore. It is about what you have as a stable of running backs. You're going to have to call upon all of them, especially here in Seattle, where we've had so many running back injuries through the recent years after Marshawn Lynch has left. So I can get the availability aspect. I think the thing to consider with this, though, when it comes down to Walker and just running with Charbonnet and then having Walker just be sitting on the bench if he is healthy, is that the potential of Walker and the potential of Walker in this offense cannot be understated. When you're watching those big ass holes that are the size of a Buick that Holani and Charbonnet are able to run through in that game, those are the kind of holes where those guys might get you 25, 30 yards. Walker will house it at times on those runs, like he did in year 1 with the Charger game or the Saints game. We haven't given him those kind of holes. He's not had those kind of opportunities. So it's the part I think the coaching staff's going to trust in on this, and why they're going to be wanting to get the 200 carries to him and give him those allotment is because they understand that he is as dynamic as he is. And if we get him those holes, he is going to be ultra productive on the back of that, even if we can't have him running out there for 300, 325 touches for a season.
Yeah, and I mean, he is in a contract year. If you want to run him into the ground, it wouldn't be the first time that a running back got run into the ground in a contract year. And it will not be the last either. So
no.
I wouldn't even hate that, but at the end of the day, you want Walker out there for outside zone. You want Charbonnet out there for inside zone. You want Walker out there for probably more neutral downs, and you want Charbonnet out there for passing downs, and you mix it all together, you're going to come out with a relatively even split, I think. And who happens to be on the field for the first snap of the game is pretty meaningless.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. It's going to be a rotational situation to the utmost.
Yeah, and we'll see who the third back ends up being. Maybe we'll carry 4 running backs. There is a part of me that thinks this team may carry 4 running backs and the fullback because they're going to be running the ball so much. And I think they think those 4 guys have very complementary skill sets. Like Damian Martinez, for all his problems, he is probably our best power back. He is probably the guy that you can trust the most in short yardage. And Holani's a better player, so you might want to have him around, especially because he has much more speed than Charbonnet or Martinez, I think. So you might want him as an outside zone backup for Walker. It wouldn't shock me if they go 4 running backs and the fullback. I could see it.
Yeah, I could too. I think you could see it breaking out that way. It's you're going to run the ball more. You're going to need these backs. I think a part of it that could make it to where they don't is that if they feel like Damian can be stashed on the practice squad, they'll go that route instead. But it wouldn't shock me either way on it. Kind of a flip the coin on that one. for me.
Thank you, Robbie Red.
Thanks, Robbie.
Feed me more with the $2. You see 49ers CJ West comments on Gray Zabel. I actually have not. Have you?
No, I hadn't seen his comments on that.
All right, let me take a look here. Usually we can find this stuff pretty easily. CJ West, Gray Zabel. Okay. 49ers rookie CJ West says that Seahawks rookie Gray Zabel can't block him. West wants all the smoke. Okay. So it's just like the WWE thing before a wrestling match.
Okay. A lot of talk for a guy who hasn't done jack squat in preseason. So
really, I haven't been paying attention. I haven't noticed him. So I guess that probably makes that statement true.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I maybe he's a little bit mad because maybe he's able to handle him at the Senior Bowl, and he still got a little bit of, he's butthurt about that. So he's like feeling like he's got to get him back.
Man, they need him though. They're so thin up front, especially with the I think it was Givens already got hurt. I think he's out for the year.
Yeah, Givens is out, and look, they got 3 rookies on that defensive line that they're counting on to give them productivity right out the gate. And we've done a lot of defensive linemen here through recent years, Brendan, from your Boye Mafes to your Derek Halls to maybe Byron Murphy played out of position a little bit last year. But we can go through a variety of these guys that we've drafted. Mike Morris first year, how many of those guys have given you any kind of real productivity in their first year?
It's thin. It's thin, right? Like you're happy if you can get a guy like Boye Mafe who plays the run well.
And you've got 3 legit guys starting on that line that are all in that same place. And Michael Williams, CJ West, and Alfred Collins. 3 rookies. All of them you're wanting that productivity from. And it's like, that's a gamble, man. That's a big time gamble. And it's all born out of course, they let go of the veteran defensive tackles they had because they wanted to slim up the salary cap, and they're eating $100 million this year.
Yeah, I was looking at the Niners depth chart the other day. I was really surprised how far up Michael was, because that's a very raw player. That's a guy who clearly needs to sit back and chill for a little bit, and he's not going to get the opportunity to on that team.
They don't have the depth. They've not drafted well enough off of them. Remember they had that Drake Jackson kid they took out of USC. He didn't really develop for them. They've had a couple of guys they brought in. They've tried to make that trade for the guy out of the Eagles that didn't play all last year, that they signed to a contract in free agency, and then they moved him to the Niners, and he's not necessarily lit the world on fire. He had like 1 good year and then a bunch of other years where he wasn't particularly good with the Jets before he was signed by the Eagles on that contract. So I look at the Niners right now and I'm like, man, it is precarious. I'm not saying you don't have a good team. I'm not saying you guys aren't going to be a hell of a challenge week 1, but that there is more vulnerabilities walking in the season, in my opinion, from a Niners perspective than we've seen in quite a long period of time. And again, you eat $100 million. Just you doing that alone on your salary cap for a given year, it's going to make it tough on you, no matter how top heavy you are as a roster.
Yeah, when you do something like that, the team should probably kind of be punting on that season. And maybe by some definition they kind of are, but they still got all these old players, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. Like, if you're punting, you're probably not keeping those guys around. So they're stuck in a weird limbo.
I don't think they punted. And I think they did the thing that I always hate teams to do, where they don't like buy into what they want to do. They're trying to take a bit of here and a bit of over here and sort of split the difference and ride the fence, right? Because, you brought back Kyle Juszczyk on a $5.5 million deal after you cut him. You went and gave the contract extensions to both Warner and to George Kittle this offseason, and what you gave them. You gave the Brock Purdy contract. I mean, you just kind of were like, well, pedal down, but then we're going to eat the $100 million as well on the other side of this. Those are 2 things that kind of go counter to each other a little bit in what you're doing. If you're all in, be all in. If you're not all in and you want to pull this thing back down and hit the reset button, then hit the reset button. Should have traded Kittle at that point. Start understanding you're an aging roster. You got to turn it over. But teams don't want. We've seen this with look at the Saints and what they're doing. Teams just can't do this. They can't make their peace with it. They can't.
Yeah, nobody does
kind of own it. Yeah, nobody does it.
Yeah, I figure a big reason why is a lot of these GMs know that, hey, if I do that, I'm going to get fired. Well, what do I care if I'm setting things up for the next GM? What do I care if the next guy is going to be in a good situation? I'm going to be out of a job.
Well, to your point, there's certainly a lot more calls right now with the season they had last year with Lynch and with Shanahan and how they manage the money and all that. And, it's getting hotter and hotter there on their side of it. He goes through another bad year in Shanahan. He puts up another 5 and whatever. There's a real chance he potentially gets fired there.
Mm. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it has only a little bit to do with us, but would you have done the Brock Purdy extension?
No. No.
Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't think I thought they were going to hold.
Yeah, I guess here's my first thing is who in the NFL is giving out that contract to Brock Purdy?
It's always hard to know with this stuff. I wouldn't think anybody else would, but then, these teams surprised me. Like, look at what Jared Goff got. Like, that surprised me too. Look at what Tua got. And it's like, maybe just teams are thinking something that I'm not. I don't know.
Certainly, it only takes one. I will say to that point of it, but I would think with his injury history and some of the limitations he does have for the position, with some of the benefits he's gotten on the back of the roster, and last year he had to kind of make his way through when the roster wasn't as loaded as it has been. But I just feel like the Niners were negotiating against themselves in this situation. And I think that they had every right to stand back and say, we want to see one more year of this before we do it. It's not like if you're going to pay him at $53 million a year right now, the price was going to significantly increase if you wait a year. What does he really think he's going to get 60 after this year if he goes out and has a solid season, a top 12, 13 rated season, basically? No. And it's not likely he's going to have that year with what is set up on deck, especially the receiver position as it stands right now. So I would have, from a Niner perspective, hardlined this one. I like the fact that they ate the $100 million. I like the fact that they're like, now own it all the way. It's like they took it all the way up to closing the door, but then they left the door cracked open. And I would have just said, then if you're going to do that, don't, throw the door wide open, then go crazy, put the void years out, go do the Eagle way with this a little bit where you're going to be like, no, we want to extend this. We want to push this out. So I don't you just think, let's try it, Brendan. Let's really think about this. Who is the team that's trading for him and giving him that $53 million? Because there's a lot of teams out there that have quarterbacks in there. A lot of teams that are in the investment in the court, like a Colts team, for instance. You go, well, maybe they're not going to bring him in and give him $53 million. They'll just go with Daniel Jones and then see if Anthony can work and then write it out another year this offseason. I'm meaning, because that's what matters is also this exact offseason on this.
Saints would have done it. That seems like a Saints move. That's the off the wall chaos that they are all about. I think the Saints might have done it.
Would they have had the cap space to give him $53 million contract?
They would have created it. They would have sent out void years into the 2050s or something. That's what they do, man. That's what they do.
Well, I agree. That is what they do, but we haven't seen them necessarily do it recently with the quarterback position on that. Once you've left Drew Brees out of it, they've kept things, even with the Carr deal that they gave him, they kept it in pretty well, realistic place with what they gave him for what he was, so, but that's fair. That indoor stadium, that you could protect against his arm limitations, maybe a little bit better in a playing in the South and in the stadium in that way. So that might've been a team out there to do it, but I think you could probably count on your hand the number of teams that would have even just been halfway thinking about potentially making that deal. And again, $53 million on a multi-year commitment to a guy that's had Tommy John surgery. With our arm limitations, I don't know. I could have easily seen it too on the other side of this, Brendan, of there being no teams doing it. And the Niners just basically going, well, if we don't do this, who are we going to go? Mac Jones? You start doing that game too, where you're like, well, not if this, then we're got to go to Mac. And it's like, well, that's not you being in favor of the guy you want to roll with. That's you not liking the alternative option.
Yeah, don't sleep on McCorkle, by the way. In that Shanahan scheme, he might be all right. Like,
he's already injured, Brendan.
Yeah, okay, but I'm talking about before the contract got signed. He wasn't hurt then. No,
remember, and we do have, we had to confirm this offseason, especially them bringing him back in, that those rumors were true at the time where Trey Lance was forced on him. He wanted Mac Jones and they forced Lance on him. And so you're right. We'll come to learn and see if he's got the magic for Mac. I will say Jones had a couple of interceptions already here in preseason. So it's not like it's coming out on fire.
Yeah, that Mac Jones 2021 season is going to be one of the great oddities in NFL history. He legitimately was good that year, and then he forgot how to play football. It's strange.
It is. I never really liked that guy coming out though, so I can't say I'm shocked at where his kind of career is gone.
Mm-hmm. It's Hoof. Thank you for the member message. Member for 51 months over here. Ooh, on my side. Glad to see BNB back in action. Hopefully we have a lot to be positive about this season. I've been on vacation, was bummed to miss the 20K special. Well, I mean, I'm still at 20K now, so every day is a celebration of a new milestone. Sometimes the milestone is a little less extraordinary. Sometimes it's like 20,102. Maybe it'll be 20,458 at some point, but it's still a milestone. Every day is a new record, is a new personal best.
And Brendan will be around to 30K soon there, Hoof. So we'll get you ready for that one too.
Yeah, especially if we do something this year. That'll build the numbers real quick.
Oh, you better believe it. That's one thing that's been missing from us doing this last few years is that we haven't had a real true winner, and that I think would ignite the fan base in a major way if you were.
Mm-hmm. I think the best year my channel has had was 2022, which was a year where pretty much everyone thought we were going to be bad, and we were actually pretty good. And that's all it took. That's all it took, man.
It is. And the fan base is hungry for it. I mean, they're ready. They're ready for there to be something they can be satiated on that's quality, and you actually have a really good team. And this week they're good. Next week they'll be crap. And 2 weeks they're good. And then 2 weeks they'll be bad. But we'll actually get some consistency here.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of milestones, one thing I want to shout out here real quick. I did hit 500 followers over on Bleacher Report yesterday. So we're moving on up over there.
Let's go. Nice job. Good work.
And I am posting 4 short videos a week over there this whole season, and also doing 1 stream a week. So if you're not following me over there, get on over there.
Mm-hmm. Do it up. Well done, man.
Thank you. But thank you, it's Hoof. And let's see. Here's another one from Feed Me More. Walker looked explosive in joint practice. Glad he's fine. Yeah, he's practiced a couple days in a row now, and now he looked good in the Packer. I don't know if it's actually a scrimmage or if it's just a joint practice, but either way, I know he looked good.
My suspicions too with Walker and the injuries of this offseason, I don't have anything to prove this. This is a gut instinct. It's simply just me trying to kind of read between the lines. I think running backs is a separate position from the rest of the NFL in the way that these running backs look at how they have to take care of their body and how much they got to pay attention to their body. Now, in Walker, this is tough because he has been injured so much. He's also just been flat injured. So this isn't just an end all for this. I just feel like this offseason in particular, being that he is in the contract year, being that right now, if you think about him going through all of high school, going through all of college, getting through his first couple of years in the pro, finally now as a second round pick, being on the precipice, if he can have a good year, of then going and getting that big monster, really first contract for him that he's had in his life. I could see how you'd be a little bit, because I feel like this and other backs and other places kind of do this too, Brendan, and some of the other places I've heard of other NFL teams where they just they're very careful with their body, especially this training camp period like this, to make sure that they're doing as much as they can to be sure that they're going to be healthy come game one to get the best out of that season so they can maximize the opportunity to get the contract.
Yeah, if that doesn't motivate you, then I don't know what will. That is, especially if you're a running back, you've got one chance at this for the most part. Very few running backs get multiple big deals in this league.
Amen. All the more reason if you were in his shoes, you'd be careful, right? You get up on the morning on a Tuesday in August 2nd and your ankle's a little sore today, it's just sore. It doesn't, you go to coach, hey coach, let's get a couple days on this. I want to be sure on this with it. And to the Seahawks organizational standpoint, dealing with Walker prior to this, they're probably also sensitive to this and going, yeah, we want to do as much as we can to manage you getting injured in training camp. We'll get you injured, have you injured in actual game. And let's try to manage this and take care of you a little bit. Every player is going to be different in how you have to take care of their bodies.
Right. And it's not like Walker needs every training camp rep. He's a running back. He knows how to run the ball. He's been doing this pretty much his whole life at this point. It's not a big deal. I know that some people were kind of freaking out about him missing some practice, but he's definitely at this point kind of like, it's like Leonard Williams. You don't have Leonard Williams practice every day. He doesn't need it. He obviously hasn't been in the league as long, but it's the same principle. Yeah.
Anyone can take a look at Walker and see that he's kept himself in grade A shape and that he's put his best foot forward this offseason with that body. It's not a guy like we have like Eddie Lacy or other guys who are going, hey, he looks a little thicker here. What's going on? Or Rashad Penny sometimes looking at his body and like, do you do everything you could have this offseason to prepare that body? I mean, Walker, he's taking care of himself. So
ban him from the Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah, exactly. I have no patience for the professional athletes that can't stay in shape. It is just utterly ridiculous. But Walker's taking care of himself. I think he'll be good to go. And I think he's going to have a hell of a year. I know I've been predicting a breakout for him for a while, but I'm telling you, you give him these holes, this offense, you give him that, and he is just going to destroy defenses.
Yeah, I think people have forgotten how good he can be. I see a lot of negativity these days around Walker, I feel like. And I understand that he hasn't always been there for us when we've needed him. I know there have been problems, but I think people forget how dynamic and explosive this guy is. He is our most dynamic offensive player, I think, by far.
Yeah, I agree with you. And his potential is just about as high as anybody on this offense for what he can give you from his particular position. In addition to that, and so it's in our best interest to have this guy rolling and using him. And two-headed back, man, two-headed system here. It's going to be a wonderful thing.
Might be more than just two heads. We might go.
Yeah.
We might go three. With the way Halani's looked in preseason, why not?
3 dragons. Let's go.
Robert Hale, thank you for the $10 super chat. Sup,
Thank you,
BNB,
Robert.
go Seahawks. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that.
Go Hawks, Robert. Thank you for that.
Always love it. Always good. I think that's really about it. I know that there was a fight at the joint practice day. It feels like there's always a fight when there's a joint practice.
Yeah.
It seems like it's part of it. Like you haven't really had the joint practice until the fight happens. So I don't think much of it. I'm not worried about it. Nothing to say about it.
No, it was good. I like it. It shows fire that's out there. It was cool about the fight too, is you had Devin Witherspoon get smacked by Zach Tom with a legit punch. Jones steps up on Zach Tom. Zach tries to throw a half-hard punch at him. Jones then gives him a good, here you go, Betty, right on the chin with one. Zach then falls back out of the fight, but then you see Seahawks all in on it with all the rest of the Packers a little bit in that situation. And you're right. This is what you get with these joint practices. This is why guys like Coach Carroll in the past haven't liked joint practices. But to me, this is why I like them, because you're doing something that you can't replicate come practice, which is that intensity. And it gives you that chance when there's so few opportunities, there's so few padded practices, to get in there and really get after it and get in that good, hard, strong work to be better prepared by game one, to not be going, well, we had to wait till week 6 or 7 till we had the callus built up of toughness to be able to go out there and really stand toe to toe with some of these teams that were already built up like that in that way. It allows you for a faster start. It's going to help us this year, I think, a lot. And I'm a big, big proponent of it.
Right. So with that being said, I think the only thing we really have left is to talk about this game on Saturday, the final preseason game of the year, 1:00 in Lambeau. Seahawks take on the Packers. We already know a few things for sure. I believe it's been said Emin Wari will not play because they're putting him on ice until the regular season.
Bubble wrap.
Torrey Horton, no way he plays because he's got the ankle. They're going to be careful. It's not like Horton's fighting for a roster spot. We know he's making the team.
Amen.
We also got an alert, like during this show. I actually got the Bleacher Report notification on my phone. I'm looking at it right now. Jalen Milroe will play the entire game.
Ooh, let's go. Hold on, let me get the applause for that one. Wow, that's good news right there. All right. As it should be, Brendan.
So people are going to get a kick out of that, like good, bad, or indifferent. It's interesting with him out there, right? That's a TV show you want to watch.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Give me all 4 quarters. Let me see him with some more of the starting offensive lineman functional play around him. But just giving him this, just allowing him to wet his feet and just, get as many reps as he can. I mean, these are reps that you not only are going to be able to correct a week from now, these are reps that you can go back and look at into January, into February, when maybe you've been sitting on the bench for a lot of the year and you can go back. Okay, when I got this done, how did I do on this? What did I correct? Have I gotten this fixed? Have I, there just gives you a lot of tape to go then back on. So I love it. And he's a fun player to watch on top of it. So it'll be exciting. Just makes the game that much more exciting in addition.
Right. With all that being said, other than the Milroe element, which we just discussed, what are you looking for from this game this week?
Really physicality. I think you're going to get some of the defensive linemen from the Packers in this game. I would expect a little bit of some, Kenny Clarks and your Rashawn Garys and the other guy they have out there, forget his name. But they've got some quality. Van Ness, that's it, Lucas Van Ness. They've got some decent inside linebacker play. They're going to give you a challenge in the running game, I think, in a way that, gives you an opportunity to really see where you're at. You've been able to push some guys around here through the first couple of weeks and go, man, is this real? Or is this what happens when we're going to go against real competition? We're going to be able to get the same kind of holes opened up. And not that this will necessarily tell you for sure that's the case, but just you do another game like we've seen in the past too. I think we get you a little more further and further confidence that this thing is going to be a thing that we can rely upon this year, being the run game, and that they're going to get the holes open. They're going to make the offense easier because we saw how everything funneled off of that, Brendan, where what I want to see off that too is that now you can give Jalen Milroe some of those easy passes off play action to see how Jalen can operate off of the under center play action. where he's got to roll out back in space. I think he does that stuff really well. And we've seen with Kubiak, you can get those easily scripted throws built in there as well, to where you just make the game easier on the quarterbacks. And I think it can stand out in a game like this with a guy that's still in kind of a rough or a raw-ish place like Milroe is, that you're then able to get a lot of productivity out of him because the system just helps him, look that good. Defensively, I don't know if there's a lot that they need to do other than just, be good against the run, show solidity there. That's your worry with this defensive line as it stands right now. Is that going to be it's a natural weakness a little bit within the scheme in general? You don't know about where the nose tackle position is going to be long-term. You want to see guys like maybe Peely and Bahana, see if they can do one more last extra step to come and earn this roster spot, and earning the roster spot help to go take a nose tackle snaps a little bit away from Murphy so he can just do, fully 3-tech kind of stuff on that side of it. But just looking for just more of kind of the same of what we've seen. I'm not looking for a lot of adjustments in the final preseason game, or a lot of moving parts and a lot of variety of different things you do. Just kind of more of the same of what we've seen so far. How about you?
For the most part, I think my primary focus is going to be at center. I want to see if they stick with what they've had so far, and I'm pretty sure they will. My understanding, though, was that while Sundell started with the ones at center, Oluwatimi also got reps with the ones in the joint practice today. So I don't know if it's completely settled up front there yet. I don't know if they're 100% sure what they're going to do there. And I want to see what happens. Is Oluwatimi even going to play? Is he well enough to play in a preseason game? And when does he play? If he does Sundell get the whole game off? I think the center position might be the most interesting one for me, because that's something where there's some room for a surprise. There's some opportunity for things to get shaken up.
It's coming down the wire. It feels a little bit like if you're watching the hydroplane races in the stadium that they run, be it baseball or football every once in a while, and you get and it's just one's in the lead, and then the other one comes in the lead, and then the other one comes in the lead, and you're sure, this guy, this one's winning it as it comes around. Then the last guy comes right at the end and sneaks it out. It kind of feels like that with the center battle.
I would also say I want to see what happens with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, because a couple different ways to look at this, right? Maybe you put him out there and you feed him the ball and you feature him a lot because you're trying to build his trade value. Maybe if he has a big game, you feel like that'll make it a little easier to move him. Maybe this is like his last chance to really latch on. Maybe you're going to give him an opportunity to finally do something this preseason, or maybe the only other thing I can think of is that they've already decided that he's going to be an important player for them, and they don't feel like they need to see anything from him in the preseason. But I want to see what MVS does this week, because there are a few different ways this can go. And I find that to be pretty interesting, because he has there are a couple things that he's clearly very good at that you would think would be important to this offense, because MVS was with Kubiak last year. He's the play action shot taking guy. He's the guy that you hit off play action for big plays. And I felt like he was the only guy on this team that would reliably be able to do that. So the fact that we seem like we don't really have any kind of a role for him is surprising me, but that is kind of the vibe that I'm getting right now.
Yeah, I think it's fairly accurate. It's hard to say how they would do it. Like, so you can inflate his value. There's another line of thinking on this, that you just sit him, so you keep him to where he doesn't get injured, and then you're able to, people know what he is, and so they don't need to see a final game of the Packers. They'll just go make the move on him, knowing his background. I think a little bit with that. The special teams part of this is the part that's weighed in heavily for me on this, that makes this decision. I think it's as much about, we've thought about being Torrey Horton or Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but maybe it's more of Torrey Horton or Bobo and Derek Young, and that those two guys provide you so much more supplemental value past what they bring to the receiver room, that's enough to override that. And the part to consider with this is, let's remember, with Valdes-Scantling last year, a third of his snaps were in the slot. And so you're not going to use him for those snaps this year in the slot. That's not his role. And so, now does that reduce down a little bit of the overall effectiveness of him, overall what he's going to provide productivity wise to you? And again, in light of, you maybe feel better as both run blockers and Derek Young and Bobo. That's a big part of this, run blockers. Because in Marquez, I think if I remember correctly, kind of a little bit below average as a run blocker. And that's important, because when you bring a guy like JSN out there, for instance, he's not a particularly great run blocker. Cup is. But I think ideally you'd like to, in this system, bring out receivers that are all good run blockers all across the board. I mean, that's something that was a hallmark of the Bronco teams going back with Terrell Davis. Part of what they were so good at, you'd have Ed McCaffrey out there just busting, and you'd have Jimmy Smith over on this side, not Jimmy Smith, but Their other
Rod,
receiver,
Rod Smith.
Rod Smith, he'd be over there handling business, both two bigger receivers that could really give it to those. And that was at a time, Brendan, where you didn't have as many of the big 6'2", 6'3" receivers, and all of the corners were 5'10". So they could just dominate those blocking matchups in the run game. And now when Terrell's getting into the second level, he's able to bust that extra long because that last final block there, like the Cup block. Did you see that Cup block last week where Cup comes out in space, and if he lands the block, it's a home run hit at that point, but he just barely, and Cup had owned it. He's like, yeah, I missed the block, or that thing's a home run. And it's very much in that same light. And that's why it's so important, is it can be the difference between a run going for 15 yards or going for 50.
Yeah, miss it in the preseason if you must. Don't miss that in the regular season. We need that play in the regular season.
I do, yeah. Maybe we don't burn that in the preseason, quite frankly, too. So I think Cup will land that block in the regular season, though. That's when he's landed in the past, and he's a good blocker for the position.
Defensively, I think the nose tackle thing's very interesting because there's a relatively realistic scenario where Jonathan Hankins either just never gets right this year, or he pops up one day and decides he's going to retire. He's old. He's got miles. He's on a pretty small contract. We may not end up getting anything from Hankins this year. And in order to mitigate that, I know we weren't depending on Hankins for a lot, but we were depending on him for something. So you are going to need to find something from a guy like Peely or Bohanna or J.R. Singleton or something if you're going to make ends meet at the nose tackle position. So I think that is very interesting, like you said. And I would also say Drake Thomas and Josh Ross, I want to see what they do, because we need to figure out this linebacker depth situation. And I like Drake Thomas. I think there's something there. I think there's a little something there that I find to be possibly roster worthy. And Josh Ross is a guy that McDonald brought over from Baltimore, and it seems like McDonald really likes him. So I'd like to start seeing what it is that McDonald sees in him, to where I feel like, yeah, this is a guy I feel okay being a backup linebacker for the Seahawks this year.
One more thing too to add on this. I think those are good spots on yours, but Jamie Sharif too, and how he looks at that off-ball line. He's probably gonna get a lot more run here, and especially the utilization of him as an off-ball linebacker, blitzing linebacker, because that's an element where now if he's on the active roster, he can provide that on game day in certain looks for you out of certain packages and provide a little bit extra value in that way. But how about too the Mike Morris, Jared Ivey battle, where Uchenna likely to be on the PUP. Maybe it comes down to these two guys. One of the two gets to make the roster. Ivy was a little bit more solidly graded than Mike Morris was last week in last week's game. And it could come down to both those guys being power edges, where they're both kind of duking it out to see who can kind of make that roster spot, at least week one.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if for the first game, it's both. And then when Nwosu gets back, they maybe make a decision. The only issue being that if a player's on the roster for week one, then their salary becomes guaranteed for the whole year. So sometimes teams really like to do the thing where they don't actually put the guy on the roster until week 2. So there is some stuff to figure out there, but
tends to be for vets. They do that though, because the guys like the Morris and Jared Ivey's guaranteed contract is going to, because they're on the rookie deals and they're a late round pick and an undrafted rookie guy. Your guaranteed contract's not going to be versus the guy that's the vet minimum at $3 million. And if you're guaranteeing that, where they're like probably 500, 600,000 or something in that range.
Very true. Very true. But there's still some stuff to look out for. Obviously, a lot of the stuff on this team has been settled. Obviously, I think we all have a pretty good idea of what's going on in certain areas. But I'd also say, of course, special teams, after what happened last week, where it wasn't just the punt return. The Chiefs had a kick return of 50 yards. They had another kick return of 34 yards, and then another kick return of 34 yards. That's not very good. That's not making me feel great about this unit. And some people pointed out that a lot of the players who were on those special teams units against the Chiefs are not the players that are going to be on the special teams units when the season starts. And that may be true, but try to find your guys. Try to find your guys that you actually can count on, that are good, and actually get them out there for this game so we can start to figure out who we can trust.
To your point on this, if you thought you had such a great special teams coordinator that you could bring those guys out that are not well suited to do the special team stuff and then get by on that, I don't think that you have that opportunity to do that here. And when I look to certain guys that we might not think necessarily have that inroads to getting on the roster, for instance, Jerick Young or Jarek Reed, I think that this is what now supplies these guys that inroad to get to the roster. Remember with Jarek Reed a couple of years ago when he went down to the torn ACL? I think he was second or third in the NFL in special teams tackles at that time. So you as a coaching staff have to allow this to carry more weight than maybe some of the other coaching staffs in light of not only the struggles in this past game, in light of the struggles of this going back to since Harbaugh's came in here a year ago. It can't be a nullifying factor onto a special teams unit that you're putting so much investment into your kicker and your punter as much as anybody in the NFL. You're wanting this thing to be a strength. You got to make it a strength to make the whole puzzle come together. I think that this is going to push those guys onto the roster who necessarily have a little more special teams value versus those that don't.
Right. McDonald was asked about the special teams performance against the Chiefs a few days ago. What he basically said was, hey, look, don't blame the coaches. The players need to execute. And he thought that the problems against KC were player execution problems. But I don't know. I struggle with that in the second year of a new coach when the coach had different players last year and was still having some of these same problems. So I don't know. If things don't go well this year, it's going to be hard for me to not pin the blame on Harbaugh, to be perfectly honest.
I think the criticism will be very fair. And I think that if he goes through a second straight year, I'd be in the same boat as you as saying, this can't be a third year of this. He's gotten 2 years. It's new rules. It's new way of doing the kickoffs. Some coaches aren't going to be able to adjust to this and roll with the punches like others will. It's going to, in a lot of ways, expose those coaches that are not innovators for what they can bring to play. And, he did struggle. I will say to Mike's point and going back and watching the All-22, everything's about gap integrity on kick and punt returns. And so it can come down to just one single guy messing the whole thing up, even if the rest of the guys are doing their job. And so on the 50-yard kick return, you have a guy who, instead of staying in his lane, running up the field, follows the up man who cuts like this, and then he cuts like that to the up man, and then he leaves this hole that the kick returner comes right through right there. And that's on that guy. I don't think that Jay would have told him to follow the up man. It was like he was just trying to make a play outside. And then Tyron Bowden, that was my come on man moment of the week on my show, where he's coming down as the guy on the far edge of the punt return gunning. So he's the gunner to the far right edge coming down, right? So his outside shoulder to the sideline is his lane to protect. Everybody else to his left have their lanes that they protect. Where does he allow the guy to get past him? His outside shoulder to the sideline.
Yeah, and it's sideline.
A two-hand touch. So it is to Mike's point on that. And in Tyron Bowden's case, like I mentioned, it's like, dude, you've got to make that play. I don't care how good you looked in camp with Jalen Milroe and the connection you guys have. You have got to make that tackle. This is not only how you're not going to make the roster. We're talking about this is how you make the practice squad. And if the coaches don't have any faith in your ability to play special teams as a practice squad wide receiver, a guy like White might end up overtaking a guy like Bowden at that point if it came down to those two guys who gets that spot on the PS, because White can play that. White will be wanting to play that. You're not. And that's a bad moment for Tyrone. It really was. I don't want to be too hard on the kid for just one play, but it was a stunning lack of effort on that play from him, and it caused the touchdown.
Right. And you've got guys like Ricky White III who are really, really good at blocking punts. Steven Sims has returning skills. These are guys that are giving you some special teams value that could not just make the roster, but make the practice squad over Broden for sure. And at this point, I suspect that they probably will.
Yeah. It was a brutal rep, Brendan. It was not like just, this is the effort on the tackle. That right there. That ain't going to do it.
He's trying to preserve his body. He's so sure he's going to make the roster. He's just getting ready for the season, I guess. I don't know.
Me and Jalen are going to be the Jerry Rice Montana connection. I got to keep that on, keep that clean.
And I think that's really about it. There's not much to look for at quarterback because we're only going to have one quarterback playing. I don't think that Milroe has any chance of being the number 2 quarterback this year. So I'm not going to be looking for him to throw for 500 yards to overtake Drew Lock. I don't think that's happening. Yeah, and that's fine. I made a video earlier this week about how we still need Drew Lock. I know he's not great. I know that there are problems, and I know he's not the future, but we need Drew Lock right now, and I'm cool with that. And he played a great game last week, so be it.
In the Raider game, outside of the one throw, where it was a bad throw at that, but the Raider game was a really good game from him too as well. I agree with everything that you're saying on this. I think that Drew Lock is a valuable backup quarterback in this league. I think this gives you the ability to let Jalen sit like you need him to sit, and I think that letting Jalen play the full 4 quarters shows you that this is the faith that the team has in Locke, and that if this was more about that battle, you'd see Locke out there and them duking it out a little bit more. Maybe you'd see less of Locke out there into the third quarter through both of the two first preseason games, where you could see them, hey, we want our backup ready and good to go. We're not as concerned to getting as much seasoning on this third guy because he's not going to play. So all of their indicators have been that this is the plan, this is the way they're going to go. And Locke is a solid steadying force as a backup quarterback.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of teams out there that would like to have a Drew Lock caliber quarterback as their backup.
Agreed. There's a lot of teams going to their guys and like, it's going to get rough if we got to go to this guy.
Right. Okay. Got a few more donations here. Seth with the $4.99. Thank you. With the injury issues the Niners are having, is it becoming inexcusable to lose week 1? This is an interesting one to think about. Where do you stand on this one?
No, I wouldn't say it's inexcusable to that point yet, because the Niners are at the end of the day a top-heavy team. George Kittle, Trent Williams, Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Warner, Demondre Lenore. Their top-heavy nature of health is in a good state. The injuries that have occurred for the most part are to what I would call more of the tier 2 guys. I mean, Pooney's right on the edge there. Malik Mustafa's out. More into the tier 2 is what I would say with those guys. So they still have the strength on the top end of things, and that can still be plenty and enough. But I will say that this is much easier as a game, much easier, isn't it, Brendan, of a game walking into this week 1 than it was when we looked at the schedule in June, and we're like, well, we know the Niners are going to be an older team that gets wore out over the course of the year. It's great to have them at the end of the year in that final game, but man, that week 1, you get them at their full strength. That sucks. But actually, it's not looking too bad right now.
Right. So I will say this. I think that looking at everything right now, the Seahawks should be looking at that week 1 game and thinking they should win. Like, it's not just the injuries. You're playing at home. It's the first game. You've had how many months to prepare? It's the new first game with this defense that is getting hyped to being one of the best defenses in the league this year. You championed continuity from last year's defense. And with all the stuff that's happening in the preseason that's building hype for this offensive line finally being good for the first time in a long time, I do think we're at a place where we can say that we should win that game. Like, as of right now, the Niners are 2-point favorites in that game. I don't think they should be favored at this point.
Yeah, I agree there.
I think Vegas is not aware of these injuries. I think once they do their homework, they're going to realize that should not stand. Now, the question is more like, is it now in a state where it's like, you better win? Are we there yet? A little bit harder to say. I have a lot of respect for Shanahan. I'll put it to you that way. He'll find a way to make it interesting. But I'm definitely in a place right now where I'm looking at that game and thinking that that's something that if we're going to be a serious team to start the season, that's a game you got to find a way to win with the way things are falling.
It's still, like you say, statement game a little bit too. And that you want to set a standard. You want to say, hey, you guys got this wrong. We're ready to take it. You have a team vulnerable that everybody's saying is going to be the number 1 team in this division. Here's your opportunity to go make that statement. And there's no energy like that week 1 energy in Lumen Field. We've seen that the past couple years. And well, when the Rams game was a tough one, but the 2 Bronco games, week 1 that we had with those, the Russell Wilson and last year, you're going to get the juice in that house. There's going to be the electricity. There's not going to be fans selling their tickets to Rams or to Niner fans in there. It's going to be blue. So they're going to get that wind at their back as far as the crowd, and that too, in addition to all this on top of it. But yeah, they're walking and limping. The receiving core is going to be light. You have Robbie Chosen out there getting significant number of snaps from the wide receiver position. Their backup running backs kind of beat up. We'll see what version of McCaffrey we're getting at this point, if he's as quick and as fast as ever to that side of it. And then again, too, the Juwan Jennings, Malik Mustafa, those are 2 losses too that are fairly significant in light of Ayuk already being out at the receiver position as well. I mean, it might be Ricky Parasol and Jacob Cowing because Demarcus Robinson's out now with the suspension. So
D. Eskridge. It's going to be D. Eskridge.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe D yet. Miami's got to let him go though. So he's still out there in Miami, I think.
Yeah, I think he's on the practice squad. I think you can poach him.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Probably not going to be on the active for them.
Yeah, I will admit, if we lose at home to the Niners in week 1 with Brock Purdy throwing the ball to his practice squatters, and by the way, every running back on that team, except for CMC's in some stage of injury right now.
Yeah.
So even that's all messed up. Like, the wind will be out of my sails if we can't find a way to win that game. I will admit that.
Yeah, maybe not inexcusable, but disappointing at this point, considering where we'll be at from a health standpoint, how prepared we are, how good we are, where the camp's been for us versus where it's been for the Niners on the other side of it. I would agree with that.
Mhm. Captain Shaw or Cap. I don't know. I'll go with Captain Shaw, even though I don't think that's actually Captain. If Sundell starts, you guys okay starting two rookies, and then he sends the second super chat that I think is basically a partner to the first one. Sundell basically a rookie. He barely played. I think there's a pretty significant distinction between a first year player and a second year player, even if the second year player barely played as a first year player. I do think that year of experience is very meaningful.
I agree with you. And this is backed up by coaches saying, Shaw, that the players make their biggest leap in year two. That's probably part of why Brendan's kind of talking about this in that way, is that it's what coaches have told us, that it's regardless of you necessarily having the playing time, it's that you've had a year in the facility, a year in the weight room program, a year of scouting players across the league and getting a better understanding of how their techniques are used and how you can counter that, just learning the position better. I don't think that he was a center coming out of college. I want to say he had played like maybe guard or something, even maybe tackle at North Dakota. So, it's also just giving him time to rep out and get better as just, the snapping like we're seeing with Haynes and getting all that. So there's a lot of benefit into having that. And I'm okay with it. If Sundell and Zabel are your two starters out there, I'm all right with it. We can't forget with this Shaw that we don't exactly have a high level of standard for the position when it comes to recent center play. It's been not maybe craptastic, but it hasn't been particularly good. So there's, from as far as a baseline goes in Sundell's case, he doesn't have to go real high to hit that basic metric that the position has been at.
Yeah, and think about where it's been in recent years. Like last year, you had Laken Tomlinson, who I don't think Laken Tomlinson was irredeemably awful, but he was well below average. Think about how easy it'll be for Zabel to be better than what we got out of Tomlinson last year, especially because Tomlinson didn't even fit the scheme. He didn't even, on a basic level, he could not move. He was a complete phone booth player, especially at that age. I'm not really worried about the youth part of it. I know Zabel's going to make mistakes because he's young. There are going to be plays this year. Just get ready for it, where Zabel makes a mistake, where somebody makes him look stupid. But I'd still rather deal with that than deal with Laken Tomlinson moving at like a snail and providing no upside because he's already 34 years old. He's only going to get worse.
Somebody out there said it. I don't know. I haven't been able to watch every preseason game on this, but I think you could make the strong argument that Zabel has had the best rookie performance out of anybody in the draft, this last draft, throughout this preseason period in these first two games.
I think Pro Football Focus actually did a study on that, and they were right there. They had him right up there. He was very close, if not at the top. It was right there, man.
And I think with that, you're right about the lumps he's going to take here and there, but I think that we're going to get a lot lesser lumps with him based on where he actually is as a player, just beyond being a rookie, and that he's ready for this opportunity. He seems like the right pick. He seems like a guy can hit the ground running real fairly. There will be the lumps. There always is rookies, but it won't be just, as much bad as good. I think you're going to get much more good with him, and he'll certainly surpass, I think, Lincoln's season last year.
Right. And Sundell, I would not expect to be great this year. Kind of, again, I don't think that is the mark he needs to hit. I just need him to be not one of the worst players in the league. Like it's not a high bar to clear.
Agreed. And just add on top of that he hits over the course of a game, let's say a dozen times, he's able to get to those blocks that there aren't as many centers in this league that can get to those certain kind of blocks, getting to the second level, erasing that block. He had to hit a reach block on a defensive tackle in this last game. So he's not only gets to the reach block, which the play's going to where the reach block's going, right? Like the play's going to the defender's side, and that's where the stretch is. So he's got to get out in front of that defensive tackle on the reach block and then pivot him the opposite direction from where the run play is going. So it's kind of a double step of difficulty for him to pull that block off. He gets those kind of blocks laid beyond what he's doing in pass protection and all that stuff. That's where he can have a real measurable impact, because you're going to bust out some real big runs at that point if he's landing those blocks like he did this past week.
Right. And this goes back to last year. Like I said, the Charbonnet touchdown against Green Bay last year, that was an example of what he can do that Oluwatimi will never be able to do. And a lot of centers can't do that, although we are getting more and more super athletic centers in the NFL these days, I feel like.
But even a guy like a Creed Humphrey, for instance, couldn't pull that block off. To put it in perspective, as great as Creed is, as awesome as he plays the percenter position, there's no way you're going to see him 30 yards down the field leading out in front on a player.
Yeah, right. That's a Jason Kelsey type of move.
Right, 100%.
And also Shaw sent this third super chat as well just now. Shout out to y'all. Never mention Lakin Tomlinson again.
He's dead to us. He's dead to us now, Shaw.
Yeah, the Houston Texans making a very interesting investment in him replacing the Laramie Tunsil departure. Well, not position,
not position, but just the Texans are going to get CJ destroyed this year. I don't know how it doesn't happen. Maybe their defense is just so dominant they can just run the ball all the time, but that offensive line looks like a mess. They got a center playing right guard. They backtracked at left tackle.
I really want to pick Jacksonville to win that division, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. I have such a feeling that Houston's going to fall hard on their face, and Jacksonville's going to sneak in at like 10-7.
I could see it happening. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause on that is just that I do feel like Texans defense is so good. And like Will Anderson's a defensive player of the year kind of candidate in what he brings. Stingley's locked down on the outside. Lassiter's worked pretty good for them. The Georgia kid at the other cornerback position. They do feel like a team that has a lot of that together. But again, to your point, I could see it being 9 wins winning that division, that nobody ends up really going out and taking it. It's just sort of like, who's the last man standing?
Yeah. I was thinking about it earlier this week. I was like, I want to pick Jacksonville so bad. I feel it, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. That takes mental fortitude that I don't know if I have.
I can't really trust it either. I just Duval. I did this with Gannon, so I probably should learn my lesson, with the shots. But I just, you're that goofy and you're trying to like guide grown men. I don't know. I know he's had success, so I'm probably being harsh on him, but they got a talent. Jacksonville does, Brendan. I'll say that. They've put together some really good talent out on that football team, but I can see why you go that way with it. It's as much, I think, what you're looking at is the weakness of the division more than the strength of the Jaguars.
Yeah, even with that though, Jacksonville's going to start like 0-6, and I'm going to hate life if I actually pick them.
What do you think about the Travis Hunter going 2 ways?
I mean, you may as well, right? You spent all that capital to draft him, right? You traded up for him. You made that stupid trade up. Got to get your money's worth, but be careful.
Yeah. I don't know how it'll hold up long term with him. Maybe initially he'll try to and be able to make it work, but long term he's got to go to one side of the ball, the other.
Yeah, I'm sure he will, but as a rookie, it could be a fun little way to sell tickets for a team that has problems selling tickets.
It's true. Very true.
And we also have a catch here with the $2. Have y'all seen the scuffle at practice today? I've seen some of the clips. It's not surprising, but I don't think it's a problem either.
Yeah, it's what you get catch with these practices. It happens. There's so many of them that it's just not even almost worth mentioning. You just don't want to have a guy break his hand on somebody's helmet swinging. But just really cool to see. You feel it as an energy thing. It's like a guy gets hit in baseball, and do the players come out they come out of the bench? They jump right out there. Are they having their guys back, or is it kind of like you had a couple guys out and the rest of the bench is like, I don't want to fight? You got a feeling in that fight, at least from our Seahawks team, that the second the punches started throwing, everybody was jumping up and they're like, let's go. And a couple different scuffles break out of the main scuffle, and Ernest Jones having Devin Witherspoon's back. And just, I liked it. I don't mind that type of stuff. This is football, baby. This is a grown man sport for a reason. And it ain't for the weak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I think that if you don't want there to be a scuffle at a joint practice, the only solution is to not have a joint practice. I feel like every time I hear about one with any two teams, this is how it ends up.
Yeah, exactly. It's good. It shows the intensity was there. Shows you got in some good work there that led up to it. And It's inevitable. It's going to happen at some point.
As long as you don't have an Aaron Donald swinging his helmet at people and trying to kill them, it's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. You're okay with it. As long as he's grabbing brandishing a weapon.
Mm-hmm. Devin Pett 14, thank you for the $19.99. What's your prediction for week 2? I'll be at that game. All right, week 2 at Pittsburgh.
Tough game for us to look at the Hawks as winning, even though I don't really have a lot of faith in the Pittsburgh team and what they're doing. I feel like the vibes have been a little bit off with Aaron Cohen. Aaron just brings the circus with him, man. It's just like he brings there, and it's just the awkward energy comes with him somehow. I don't know why, but it is what it is. Still, with that said, you're getting a very difficult Steelers team, I think, overall to kind of have to deal with and how they've set this up. And you're getting like Watt out there and Cameron Hay. It's a little like the Niners thing where you're getting this team that's going to be a bit of an aging team, and you're getting them early on when they're going to be kind of at their most spry and healthiest. So I think it's going to be hard for me to predict a win on that one, being that you got to go out on the road on that one, and that it is a team with such a good defense in Pittsburgh alone that they can kind of, even if their offense isn't getting anything done with Rodgers, they can kind of hold on for you on that. And then it's a 10 a.m. game in addition to it. So it just feels like a game that's going to be hard for us to pull off given where Pittsburgh will be and given the time of day that you're playing it. But Pittsburgh's got some questions, that's for sure.
It's tough. Like when I saw that game on the schedule months ago, my mind immediately just went to, okay, that's going to be a loss. And I put the L there and I didn't really think too hard about it. And I've left it there this whole time. I will say, with the way the vibes are in Pittsburgh right now, with the way things are going in camp, in that locker room, with the way that personnel looks like it's not fitting together, the door is open. I will say that could end up being a game that you win like 19-12 or something, some weird score like that. And I didn't think the door was going to be open. I would have assumed that would just be a game where I go, you know what, the offense, they need more time. Week 2 is too early for them. The defense is going to be too good. The conditions are probably not going to be great, by the way. Usually September Pittsburgh it's uncomfortable to play in. It's kind of like when you've got your West Coast college football team playing a 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. road game in Iowa or something, and you just know it's going to be you're not going to have a good time. It's kind of the same thing.
Tough environment, man. It's just it's a rough one to go in early season on that, and it's one of the tougher games on the schedule by the position, the timing of it, and just by the fact, look, the Steelers, you don't know exactly what you're going to get from them, but this is a team that tends to win more games and they lose over and over every year, so that you're not getting a bad team. You're not going to get a team that you're going to just be able to, lap in the course of the game. Like you said, if you win this one, it's probably going to be a mucky, dirty kind of game that you just kind of edge out at the end.
Yeah, I will admit the door is more open for this game than I thought it was going to be. I find myself dreaming of winning this game significantly more than I thought I would when things started. And I'm not saying we will, but I am saying that Pittsburgh team, there's some bad juju right now.
There is. I think it'll be a little bit like the Jets-Rodgers situation last year too, where if you can find a way early on to stop them in running the ball and get them one-dimensional with Rodgers trying to chuck it every which way but loosen Arthur Smith's offense, that's a recipe for success for the Seahawks at that point. And if you can do that and remove that, but we do remember a couple of years ago with a team it's very similar to the Steeler team they're rocking out this year right now. When they came into our house, they were able to kind of run the ball at will on us. And that's going to be really the key there on that one, Devin, for me, is if we can hone up and stop up that run, then you're going to be able to go get the win. And if they are able to run, that's probably more of a indicator it's going to be a loss.
But we'll probably do like a full schedule prediction next week, I think, because next week we'll have the roster cut down and there won't be a game that week because there's a week off between the last preseason game and the first game. So we might do the whole schedule next week because we didn't do it initially.
Yeah, definitely.
Matthew, thank you for the member message. Member for 18 months. Any rival jerseys, expectations, or wants? I'm not sure what that means.
Rival jersey.
Is he talking about like the New Jersey stuff they're doing this year where the Seahawks have the different is he talking about that?
Yeah, I think he might be, yeah. A little bit of the alt jerseys that they'll be rocking.
Yeah, I think that's what we're getting at here. So yeah, I've seen the New Jersey stuff. It's pretty cool. I'm interested in it. It's a different look. It's certainly better than the orange jerseys. And that's the only bar you have to clear.
I think, Matthew, for me, it'll be that Tampa. I don't think it's the specialized jerseys. These will be the throwback ones, but the Tampa Bay Seahawks throwback, because Tampa Bay's got some really nice throwbacks, and then our throwbacks, I mean, that's going to look really cool. That's the one that I'm on top of. It's going to be a hell of a game. But that's the one I'm really looking forward to is again, come back to just let's make the throwbacks full time. I'd be a happy man if we did that. I think the fan base would be, I think national people want this too. When you hear about them talk about the Hawk jerseys, it's one most favorite jersey, that old school one of anybody, anytime they wear it. So that's the one I'm going to be looking forward to. But they've kept some of this too, Matt, under lock and key a little bit and not showing you what they look like. So it's kind of hard to know what the rival jersey will be because they're like, you'll see it when you see it.
Yeah. Is Tampa going to be in the creamsicles or is it different?
I think so. I thought it was the creamsicles that they're going to be in.
Yeah. All right. I can dig it.
With the old school logo. I'm with it, man.
That logo is so much better than what they got right now. I know it's weird, but I really wish they could have stuck with it. That is such a fun logo.
I agree, man. They were the uniform people in kind of the 70s and 80s were kind of in their bag, with like the way the Raiders logo got created at that time. And they really knocked it out the park. I feel the same way about the old Jet logo with the actual jet on it. I like that better than the new one.
Yeah,
I like the Patriots old one better. I liked it with the militiamen, Minutemen.
Oh yeah,
deal with it.
What you're talking about?
Yeah, I like that one better.
Yeah, even go back to like the 90s with basketball. The old Raptors logo was better than the one they got now. The old Magic one was cool.
Well, and I hated what they did to the Sonic one from the late 80s, like that green that they went to with the weird one in the early 90s on the Sonic jersey. And
well, there's the one that had like the skyline, right, of Seattle where you could see
that,
like
the green, like the good green, like that nice. Yeah, that's the best one to me. That's solid.
Yeah, I have a Sonic starter jacket that actually has that logo on it. It's like really old. It's faded as all get out. I wear it for certain occasions. It might be older than me. I don't even know how old that thing is, but it is very cool.
I wear that Sonic shirt. That's the old throwback all over the country. I've wore it. And every time I wear it, people out and about will all, oh, Sonic's, they got to come back to Seattle. And, that's how, it's a kind of an iconic, because they've been out of the 20 years on whatever. You've been out of this city and that logo's been away, but people remember it.
Definitely. Yeah. That is the best one. These distinctive logos. Now everything's trying to be like minimalist and it's boring. Like there's no style now to some of this stuff. It's like very kind of corporatized logo looking stuff versus having a little bit of flavor to it. Yeah. Beyond Balance, thank you for the $12. This run game last year we averaged -2 yards before contact. Last game 77 of our 174 yards were before contact. Having a hard time containing my hype. Well, sometimes it really is just sometimes it's that simple.
Yeah, he brings up a great point here. I'm trying to find my other I had another stat that was kind of in addition to this one. Here we go, Brendan. So this was also one his is kind of for all the runs in what Beyond Balance is referencing. This was also one that Brett Coleman put out last year. Yards before contact on runs to the A and B gap. Now, that means that not outside zone runs, not pitch plays, because pitch plays and outside zones can be more open to you having penetration and negative plays, right? But getting downhill into the A and the B gap Beyond Balance are supposed to be runs that you're able to get the 1 and the 2 yards at least, right? The 3 yards in a clouded dust situation, because you're just coming right downhill. The guy just has to get a hat on a hat. Guy's right past your outside shoulder. Seattle Seahawks last year, yards before contact per carry into the A and the B gap runs. The Eagles led the NFL with a 2.7 yards. So on A and B gap runs, Saquon Barkley wasn't being hit until he was 3 yards on average through the line of scrimmage. Right? Saquon, 3 yards before you get him hit. The Seattle Seahawks were 32nd on A and B gap runs. Brendan, if the Eagles at 2.7 yards per carry average, throw a guess out there of what you think the Seahawks were on A and B gap runs before contact. If the Eagles were at number 1 at 2.7.
0.4.
0.6. So you're right in the same place, but that is a monstrous difference Beyond Balance. And you better believe with this new scheme, that is going away. The stat that you presented is going away. Doesn't mean they're going to dominate or that they're going to be out there at the Eagles at the 2.7 yard per pop, but it's going to be significantly improved because it was just that effing bad.
Yeah. And you let Charbonnet build up some speed when he's running on these inside zone runs. You let him get a little bit of room to actually get up to his top speed. He's going to be hard to handle. He's going to be hard to tackle. That's going to make all the difference here.
It's when he becomes a hammer. He's not a short yardage back, but if he gets up to speed, he does become a hammer at that point. That's how you get that Panther game a couple years ago where he had the guy going flying into the shadow realm on the hit because he gets up and there's some force behind him when he's rolling.
Right. I'm excited for that. Definitely. There's I mean this new NFL, it's kind of built for teams to run the ball. It's built for teams to have a lot of success by having a dominant running game. And the pendulum's going to swing back the other way eventually, but for the time being, if you can be doing this kind of stuff with your yards before contact, you're just going to win a lot of games. It's impossible not to.
It's the right time to be running the ball heavy, to your point. It's the absolute right time, right scheme to be implementing this. It won't be this way forever, but right now, this year, more 12 personnel than we're going to see ever run before in NFL history this season. More 2 tight end looks this season. Back tie formation looks across the board in the NFL. Running the ball is going to take center stage again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think anything else you can think of to cover? I think we covered the Green Bay game pretty good.
I think we got it pretty well covered through. We'll see if we got any other signings or any other trades here in the next week, Brendan. That's something that we might have a little bit more for the next week's show too, is that we do get some supplemental moves where we cut, we bring this guy in, we cut, we make a trade for this, we cut, we sign this guy. So it's going to be an interesting week for the Seahawks to put in kind of the final parts and pieces into place, considering, remember at all times that John's sitting on so very much cap space still that he can go out there and make some hay with. Don't think Hendrickson's coming down the line. That's been brought up a little bit. I think that's been really neutralized as far as the outlook for Seattle here. And I think Parsons as well for the most part. But other guys, other trades, other moves could be made. Yeah, you better believe it. It's possible.
Right. Yeah. Apparently the Bengals won a first-round pick and a good young player for Hendrickson. I'm not anywhere close to that. And look, maybe they'll come down. Maybe that's just their starting point. Maybe that's just them talking tough and they have no problem coming way down. But I don't know. I wasn't crazy about the Hendrickson thing anyway. I think he's played his whole career in a 4-3. I don't know if he's ever played standing up.
He stood up here and there, but it's not how he's lived life.
Right.
It's not, to your point, that's not the way he does the best stuff that he does. And there's a difference between guys that are good at standing up and guys that do better with hand in the dirt, come up on the leverage from hand in the dirt from 6'5". When you're 6'5" standing up, some guys have a hard time getting back down on that, where it's easier if you're low to the ground to come up and then win that sort of leverage battle in on that. So I think too, with the Bengals and the Cowboys, they're just organizations that they're both very similar in so many ways. Not cash rich, kind of cheap, kind of willing to hardline players when they shouldn't. And when you talk about them trying to ask for a first round pick plus a player at this point, that to me, Brendan, is more of, we're trying to hardline the player. We're trying to force his feet to the fire because we know we're not going to get that, but we can come back to him and say, well, the offer was there. We tried.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a rumor that the Packers made the Parsons offer. Did you see that?
I did. Yeah.
Do you buy it? Do you think they actually made that offer?
I do. Yeah.
Not a very Packers-like thing to do. I'll say that.
Well, it's not, but I think that I've mentioned over and over again the comparison to one particular player when talking about Micah Parsons and bringing on his impact onto a football team. And that the last time that you could find a relation to this, and it's to me not really Khalil Mack as much. I know that's a similar one, but I think Parsons is a little bit more on pass rush. Mack's probably better as a run defender, but it is like a Reggie White. And that's I made the comparison too. And the Packers went down that road with Reggie in a way where the Packers don't do this. The Packers never do this kind of move, and they did it with Reggie. I think I could see them doing it here. I think you look at that Packer team, and I think we're going to feel that this week is that you have solid guys. They've got a lot of the same kind of problems that we have, though, like when it comes to like edge. You know, Van Ness and Rashawn Gary are very similar in a lot of ways to Derek Hall and Boye Mafe. You don't have that real pure kind of difference maker element guy. And inside, Kenny Clark's fine, you know, but the kid, remember they took out of Georgia a couple years ago, Wyatt, he's been all right, you know, but who's the difference maker on that defense right now, especially with them losing the cornerback? Xavier McKinney?
Quay Walker's a difference maker when he gets ejected from games because he punches. Yeah, that's about. Yeah, it's funny because I was trying to make a thumbnail for this game the other day, and I was thinking, okay, I need to pick out some stud defensive players for the Packers to put here, and I was like, wait a minute, that he doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, I think it's your guy from the kid you were hot to trot on their middle linebackers. Maybe the other guy on this.
Edge Cooper.
He's maybe the other guy that you could kind of fit in that mold of this. But aside from that, they're solid all the way across the line. They don't have really a lot of negative defensive parts there, but they just don't have anybody. So I certainly could see them going, look, time to make the big swing where Love's at in his career. You know, he's heading into his prime. We drafted Golden. We've got we think the offense with Josh Jacobs. Time is of the essence there because, you know, he's not going to be giving him the kind of performance he did last year for a long period of time with his age and with his mileage on his body.
Right. I could see it. I could see it. I just think he's too good to get traded. I feel like this is one of those cases where it can't happen because the player is so good. It's literally illegal to make a commensurate trade offer.
It could be. I could see it, and that fits more with the way the Cowboys have operated their business too. Jerry just doesn't like to make these kind of moves. He's not a big risk taker, and that this would be a bit of a risk taking kind of move. So I think, like you, they eventually just kind of force it to happen there one way or another with Micah. That's their track record too. They end up paying up all the money. They just make you wait a while to do it.
Devin Pett, thank you for the $9.99. The sad thing about having Kubiak is that even if he's great, he will be gone for head coaching. Kind of sad how the office of coordinators have been either they're terrible or good, but they're gone. Right? That is the catch-22 here. But it's I'd much rather lose my offensive coordinator because he got hired to be a head coach than lose him because he's never going to work in the NFL again.
Amen. Yeah, amen. It is a difficulty, Devin. I don't disagree with you there. It's absolutely the part that sucks about it is you finally get a real good one first time in years, and that's going to be an inevitability of something that possibly could happen if he goes out and has the kind of year where he could. I think that I come back to on this is that if really beyond finding the ultimate brilliant offensive coordinator for me, Brendan, it's about having a process and how you hire these coordinators. It's a very smart one, a very exhaustive one, and one that has both the general manager and the head coach on the same page and what they're looking for in bringing that guy in. And that's what led you to Kubiak in a lot of ways is that process. You went exhaustively through a lot of candidates. You turn it over. You start early on in the process. You got Grubb out fast so that you could have all of the available guys to pick through. Remembering with Grubb, why you failed on that one, why that one sucked was because you had no more OCs to pick from at that time when you'd hired McDonald because he was late in the process. So I think that I know this is a concern from many in the fan base is that if you get Kubiak good, you'll lose him and then you're back to going for a Grubb, so to speak. I think it's much more likely that you go out there to find a Kubiak-like coordinator and what you're looking for, especially for a guy if Kubiak goes on. Brendan, this is going to be a pretty nice spot for somebody to come land. You got a variety of quarterbacks. You got an offensive line that's been slowly built up. You're going to have some running backs here. You're going to have some receivers on the side. You'll have a dominant defense to help you out to that. I think a lot of OCs and even quality OCs would look at that and say that's one of the better jobs to go to if Kubiak does move on.
Yeah, maybe it ends up being an in-house promotion of one of Kubiak's guys as well.
Who's the one guy? The one guy in
Janoko.
No, the other guy in our house, the guy that was the guy they thought about making the OC for a while before they went to Kubiak.
Are you talking about Jake Peets? Yeah.
Jake Peets.
Yeah, somebody who learned under Kubiak and maybe picked up some of the stuff that he needs to be successful.
Yeah. So I could see it being a bit of potentially that too with it, but I don't think that if Kubiak goes as a monstrous season that we're going to be stuck at that point with no good options, or the offense will certainly go backwards now by a guy that we bring in. I think there's still a chance you can do the we don't miss a beat thing, or if we miss it with slight miss of a beat.
Yeah, I think one thing we've learned over the last few years is the only way to have a long-term offensive coordinator is to have somebody who like perfectly threads the needle between being good and bad. Mm-hmm. I remember looking at there was an article, this is a few years ago, but basically every team had a play caller that had been working for that team as a play caller for 2 years or less at one point, because everyone was getting swapped out. Either they get fired or they get a head coaching gig, or they just decide, look, we're going to try something different. We got to move on. There was no such thing as like a long-term play caller, except for your Andy Reid types that are the head coaches, right? Because they can't get poached.
I think the guy you got to find the Spagnuolo type, the guy that's been the head coach, but then realizes he's just not built for that. He's built to be an OC. Right. And then maybe you can retain that guy for years on end at that point, which again, back to the Seahawks process and being smart, that'd be the smart guy to go look and target. Who do we know that they wanted to get before they got Grubb? Who do we know that they were looking at before they wanted to get Grubb? Arthur Smith. Exactly that kind of guy. That's probably not a guy that built to be a head coach, but probably a guy that can be a very good offensive coordinator in this league.
Yeah, I love Arthur Smith. Would have loved that guy. That would have been another thing I definitely would have taken a shot at if he was available this offseason. Let's see. Shaw, thank you for the $1.99. All black and the numbers blue would be fire.
Ooh, that would be pretty tight. Maybe a little bit of maybe you get even a little bit of the neon as just as the outlier to the numbers, the numbers all blue, and then just a little bit of the neon, just the hint of the neon around that with the black, that kind of pop.
Yeah, you can only wear it at home though. It's got to be like a blackout thing, like where you tell
Yeah.
all the fans to wear all black too.
Oh, that'd be cool. The whole stadium just all black. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one that Bobby Wagner always wanted, right? It's too bad
Mhm.
that if we did it now, it wouldn't be with Bobby because he was the one who really liked the black jerseys. But still, I like the blackouts.
Yeah. Me as well. Me as well. I all day long throw those out there.
Hmm. Okay, so I think that's covers all the ground that needs to be covered for the time being. We are less than 2 days away from kickoff, and then it's time for the games to start counting.
It's time for this thing to start clicking into place, man. So I'm looking forward to it too as well. And man, it's been a good training camp, Brendan. We've had a really good process here leading into this regular season. No guarantees as that's going to then bend into a successful year, but I think that it could be going the other way, which is definitely more of that. This is an omen. This might go sideways this year, a little bit like the vibe you're getting out of San Francisco. So
Right.
yeah, feeling good with it on that side. And yeah, we got a hell of a year on store for us.
Yeah, and maybe bad things will happen later, but right now the vibes are good in my book. And I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if this was going to be the year. Like, we're not Chiefs fans, right? We're not Eagles fans. We don't have the luxury of just knowing that our team is always going to do the right thing and always going to be there at the end.
Mm.
But so far, since camp started, the vibe's pretty strong.
Agreed. Yeah, I feel like it's been you have the full participation in OTAs. You've been able to avoid for the most part the injury situation. Charles Cross today was out doing work against the
Mhm.
Packers, actually out there, getting it done. So, this is that time of season where you're just trying to hold your breath and hope that you can, bring the full measure that your rookies are able to show something in training camp, which they have. I mean, you've had a variety of guys we could talk about with that have done well. So it as much as you can get to a place of getting the regular season and having the vibes be in the right place without being able to predict exactly what's going to happen. Seattle's done everything they can up until this point to kind of control their fate as much as you possibly can to having a successful season. There's a bit of it that's in sort of God's hands at this point, but you have done all of your A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down to Z things from the participation, from intense practices that the coaches talk about, like Kubiak's talked about. I don't know. He's kind of marveling at how McDonald has gotten such intense practices without the complaining, without the bitching and moaning. All of
Mhm.
that stuff has been true. And so I think that this is where this, we try to fight to be homers here. We fight trying to not get too into our biases here, but I just feel like there's a lot of great fundamentals here that do speak to this being a really as good a season as we've seen from our Seahawks, probably going in just about a half a decade.
Mm. Things are in front of us, man. With this schedule, with the way this division is starting to shake up, this could you could just get on a roll, and then suddenly you look up and you're 3 games ahead in the division in December.
Amen. Amen. I could absolutely see it be the case.
Mhm. All right. So before we get on out of here, please like and subscribe on my end. Please like and subscribe on Brandon's end. Both our channels obviously getting warmed up for this season. Are you doing the watch along stream of the Packers on Saturday?
I will be doing live play-by-play, 1:00 Pacific Standard Time on my channel. Yes, sir.
All right, so definitely go check that out. I will not be doing watch along this week. I will be doing post game stuff as typical, Bleacher Report and YouTube. So get following me over on both sides. And I will be on Twitch later tonight. We are a little more than halfway through our Metal Gear Solid marathon. We are most of the way done with Metal Gear Solid 1 now, and we are on track to finish before the release of Delta next week. But we got to go hard. No breaks whatsoever if we want to finish this marathon, man. So
Let's
come
go.
watch me if you want to do that. And yeah, man, it's
One other quick note too for me. I've got a fantasy football league right now. If you're looking to join the Hawks Nest Fantasy Football League, reach out to me at heyhawksnest@gmail.com. Hey Hawks, plural, nest@gmail.com. If you want to get on that, let me know.
all right. All right. Is it just a free league? Is it just a for fun league or what?
It's a free league, but the winner I send out some swag to from the shop when you win. So you
Very
don't have
nice.
to enter in, but you get a little bit of free swag if you can win. You can
All
beat
right.
me.
Yeah. I'm not good at fantasy, so you'd probably be taking all my swag if I tried to get in that league somehow. I'd
I'm
probably
not good
lose
at it
swag.
either.
Yeah.
There's such a randomized element to it that's tough, but I'm
Mhm.
gonna see if I can take it this year.
All right. So thanks everybody for coming out. We peaked at over 500 viewers. We still
Let's
got like
go.
470 right now. And once these games start mattering, probably go even higher than that, like you would expect it.
Amen, brother. We're going to be in for a great year and hopefully something special. I'm really looking forward to it.
So, one preseason game left. I know that you guys are sick of games that don't count, but one more to get through, and then we settle the roster, and it's off to the races. So, we're going to say it, and then we're going to get out of here, and we're going to gear up for what will hopefully be a very special season. So, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.